Hello and welcome once again to the Overcome Yourself podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I am here today with the amazing Allison Smith. And Allison is an astrologer, and the way that she described it to me is that she brings the energy of the stars down to us so that we can use that energy, right? And so I might be butchering that, so I want Allison to tell us all about Allison and how she brings that energy. I want to know more about that star energy. So take it away, Allison.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Nicole, for having me here on your podcast today. Yes, I'm an astrologer and I've worked with the energy of the stars, the energy of the earth for more than 20 years. And it's useful. It's very, very useful. And as far as I'm concerned, it is there for us to use. And in my work, and just whenever anybody will speak to me about it, whenever I get a chance for it, I like to say that it's not fate and it's not destiny. It truly is not. It's all about making choices. It's all about looking at the energy that's available. It's all about maybe tuning into it or maybe not, but giving ourselves the information so we can choose whether to use it or not. And that's what I'm all about. And I've been described as the most practical astrologer because I like us to use it and I like us to have that information. And even if we do nothing with it, it's been our conscious choice then. And that's what I'm really hot on. It's conscious choice. And the more information we have, then the more we can make those choices.
Yes. The more information we have, the better decisions that we can make, right? And that mirrors what I talk to my clients and my audience all the time. It's all about perception, right? And how you look at something. So I love that. I love it. So I'm checking here your notes because we were talking about You were talking about how astrology offers clues as to how to fully move into the beginning of a new and major part of your life. So you mentioned that in the notes. And so that could be like starting a new business or traveling. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how you use the energy of the stars to help your clients navigate those new chapters in their lives?
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank you. When we're born, we are born onto this planet Earth at a particular moment in time and space. And we land on this planet, we're born, and the universe has given us a pattern of planets and stars all around us for that moment. And the planets and the stars are all moving at different rates. The Earth is hurtling through space at a different rate as well. And all of the time, the different patterns of energies are different. So our birth chart is completely unique because there'll never ever be another pattern of stars exactly the same. Even if we look at the moment we started this particular podcast, there'll never ever be another pattern of stars exactly like that again, because everything's moving at different rates. And so what we do is we have our birth chart in place, and then we look to see what's going on in the universe around us. And there are certain planetary energies which, if we fully are aware of them, are completely useful. And I'd just like to highlight a couple, because one of them is an asteroid called Chiron. And Chiron in mythology is the wounded healer. And where Chiron, the asteroid, shows up in the birth chart is often where we are called to serve. And perhaps where we have healed ourselves or are healing ourselves and can help others do the same. Now, he has a 50-year orbit. So imagine at round about age 50, he's returning to the same place in the sky as he was when you were born. So there's that. Then also Saturn. Now, Saturn has a roughly 28 to 29-year cycle. So the second cycle return, when he's returned to the same place as he was when you were born, is around about age 58 to 60, 56 to 60. I could go on, but there are specific planetary energies. They're returning to the same places they were when you were born. They were making an amazing pattern of energy just to get us into a new chapter of life. And so when we get to age 45 onwards, it's a new beginning. There are new beginnings being offered to us. And that's where choice comes in, because we can choose how we're going to use those new beginnings, how we're going to take our lives forward, what we want to be doing. You know, it's the start of something. And that's what's so exciting.
And that's interesting. What it makes me think of in the corporate world is right about that time is when we see, or a little, maybe a few years after that, is when we see like a midlife crisis happening, don't we? And I think that speaks a lot to what you're talking about, where there's this yearning and you realize there's more than just this monotony, right? I had the privilege of having a quarter life crisis. And I remember I've had like 8 quarter life crises. It feels like, and so it's that moment of like rebirth and you're like, what am I going to do from here? And so I think that's really cool. How, because sometimes we think of things like cause and effect and it's very short, like by the end of the year, by this, but you're talking about like these lifetime. I mean, we got to wait 30 years. Like you can't waste this opportunity. It's not just going to come by again next year, like your birthday, right? So that's really cool too. Very interesting. Now I'm going back to the notes because you did mention here that you are a Leo. So can you talk to me a little bit about like how you use these astrological signs and how they can help us be more aware of ourselves, I guess, and move forward? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, I'd love to. Yes, I'm born in August.
And I'm an Aries. If you want to use me as an example, you can go ahead and like break it down, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's totally okay.
Right, well, let's do my best. Yeah, so I was born in August, so I'm a Leo. And I never ever identified with being a Leo. And actually, I didn't believe in astrology. Not at all, nothing, because I am very shy. I'm fine talking to you today because I've got my subject to talk about. But I was the very, very shy child in the playground. And really, I never ever identified with being Leo. And people would say, but you're a Leo, you should be out on stage. And I really did try, tried really hard. I joined an amateur dramatic society. I can remember joining it. And I would just do anything. I would be wardrobe, I would be prompt, I would just do anything rather than go out, into the spotlight, onto the stage. And then I had my birth chart drawn up by an astrologer who gave me my birth chart and showed me that the particular area of my birth chart, and that's why timing is quite important with astrology when you have your birth chart drawn up, but they showed me where Leo was in my birth chart actually was to do with helping others shine, to do with getting others out there. So having been wardrobe and prompt and all sorts of other jobs in a dramatic society made perfect sense. So you still have those traits, even if you don't feel that you identify with exactly what the book that you happen to read says. You will be experiencing your sun sign, where the sun was when you were born, the zodiac sign, in some way. But also don't forget, your birth chart's amazing because you've got all of the other planet stars and zodiac signs. So the moon at the time of your birth would have been in a zodiac sign. Mercury would, Mars would, Venus would. And that's what the construct of all of your potentials, your birth map, is all about. So, Nicole, you having your sun, the sun was in Aries when you were born. Now, Aries is a very dynamic sign of the zodiac. It's ruled by Mars. It's also the first sign of the zodiac.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so it's an ignition. It will get things moving. So if anyone's listening to this and you're in Aries and you think, well, I don't always resonate with what it says in the book, like I didn't with my Leo. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because we're both fire signs, because Aries is the fire sign, Leo is. We needed a Sagittarian, really. But you know, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't really identify, just look at what area of life you are able to get things moving in, because that's what Aries does. Aries gets things moving and will get things started, and will love that whole concept of making something into something. Does that answer your question, Nicole?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Very cool. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. And I love it. And I was born on April 1st, so there's a lot of beginnings. There's a lot of leadership there. Cool. And I am hard-headed too, you know, like the ram. So I've always associated with that. I was like, that's very, yes. That is so cool. Now, tell me about, you've got some free resources for our listeners. So can you tell me a little bit about that? You have a free guide, and you also have a Facebook group, right?
Oh, right. Yes, I do. Thank you. Yes, I've got a free guide to finding inspiration, because a big part of what we're here, what I believe we're all here, is to be creative. In whatever way it is, we're all here to be creative, to be in that flow, to move forwards. You know, everything in our universe moves forwards. It all does. And even if you hear about planets being retrograde, which you probably will, they don't actually go backwards. They have changed their energy from our perspective here on Earth, because everything goes forwards all the time. We age, you know, and I've already spoken about certain planets giving us such opportunities in different decades of our lives. And so because everything moves forward, we need to be in flow. And however that is. And so I've put together a short guide for finding inspiration, and that's a download. So I'm sure that
We'll have the link
available
in the show notes. Yes, the link will be available down below in the show notes.
Lovely, thank you for that. And I do also have a free Facebook group called Star Clarity Earth Magic. And the reason I called it that is because we need to be in alignment with us on Earth and with the stars. We ground ourselves, and then we start to look at what potentials are available. And when we keep it like that, that's when we make our best choices and our best decisions. So, yep, free Facebook group. Love you to join.
Love it. Yay. Awesome. And then, so Allison, do you have any last minute tips? Do you have, some knowledge you can drop on us here before we sign off?
I do. One of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself is to go outside and look at the moon. Now, I know that sounds like a really simple thing, but I've been speaking about this for years, and one person actually wrote to me, and she said, "Thank you, Alison, for making me to go out and look at the moon." She said, "I was ironing, I put my iron down and I went outside." It was one time when I was doing a live, because it was a particular full moon. And she said she went outside and looked at the moon, and she wrote to me and she said she couldn't remember the last time she'd actually looked at the moon. And so I know it's a simple thing, but whatever phase the moon is in, just go outside if it's safe. Make sure you're safe. I have to put my hat on, my safety hat on, but go outside, look at the moon, because it helps us remember how connected we are with each other and also with the earth. And when we start to be connected with the earth, and we look at the universe, and we look at just the awesomeness that's out there, we can start to get a feeling of just how, first of all, how awesome we are as individuals, but also just how many potentials there are for us. And at every moment, and I talk a lot about moments because it is about moments, and that's probably another thing that I want to say about the fact that we don't really need to think about somebody doing something else at a certain time. Think about ourselves, think about yourself and the moment you're living in. And when we think about that moment that we're living in, and we think about the different changes that can lie all around us and the potentials, we can start to take our own journey forwards. And I think when we start to look at the moon, if you go outside, you look at the moon and you see other planets are available, you can start to see how actually, yes, we're individual, making individual choices and potentials, but we have connections with each other too. So that would be my biggest message right now, especially, is to ground yourself by looking at the moon, and also take your time, take your moment to make your own choices and decisions moving forwards. Does that help?
Yes, that's wonderful. I love it. I love looking at the moon. Like I just happen to have an apartment where if I have the window open, like when the sun is going down, sometimes I'll see it coming up, and then so I get to see it like really big right there. And I love looking at the moon. Like sometimes, there's just something about it. Like you just go out there and you just look at it. It's hypnotic. And everything really is connected. Like the moon affects even our blood, right? Like we know that the moon affects
Yes.
like the oceans and the tides, but sometimes we don't think about the fact that we're 70% water, just like the earth. And the moon is affecting our blood, like our periods as women. Like it's connected to us, right? I mean, life is sustainable on earth because of the moon, right? Like it's a big part of the health, other than the sun, of course. So that's such a big deal. And one of the things that I talk about all the time is gratitude, is practicing gratitude and being in the moment. And so I think that aligns, because it is about the journey, right? I went on this bicycle ride. We went, and it was the first time, and we went for 15 miles. Okay. And I was out in the Everglades, it's in the swamp. We didn't see any gators, but we did see gator poop. So, like, they're out there, And so, like, there's no choice. Like, there isn't something that you can call someone to pick you up. Like, you've got to make it back, right? And the first half, it was cool. The second half, it was tough. And when we got back, it's really funny because like you're in the middle of it and you're cursing out and you're like, I'm never gonna do this again. I'm leaving the bike here. I don't want the bike. Like, forget this. And then when you finish, it's like, I did it. I can't wait to do it again, And I looked at my partner and I'm like, this is exactly what enjoying the journey is about. Like, even though it was tough, like my mindset was like, but if I had just, switched my mindset, which is tough when you've never done 15 miles, but you learn to switch your mindset and enjoy those little moments, right? Because if not, you're going to be miserable the whole time. I was miserable the whole way back. And I was like, but that's where you learn to enjoy the moment, and then you think back and you're like, wow, it was beautiful, and it was tough, but like I feel better, like my legs aren't gonna fall off, so I'm okay. And so that was a really big lesson for me. And I was like, this reflects the entrepreneurial journey so much, because like you're in the thick of it and you're cursing yourself out. You're like, I'm never gonna do this again. But then you finish, you're like, look what I created. And then you're like, I can't wait to do it again. And so we've got to learn to enjoy those moments. And looking at the moon is simple. We don't need to spend any money. We don't have to like take a bunch of time out of our day. There's no scheduling. We don't got to get dressed up. We don't have to, you just go outside and look at the moon for 2 minutes and just maybe focus on your breathing. And that it could be its own meditation, man, right? Like, that's so genius, so simple and so smart. I love it, Allison.
It is. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And we forget to look at nature's rhythms. Only because we're so caught up in what we're doing or what we've got to do, all of that. But by going out, looking at the moon, by thinking about what phase the moon is in, by using that particular rhythm, which is a really good rhythm to use as entrepreneurs, if you can get into a rhythm of planning and starting something new at new moon, of completing it and enjoying it, or gratitude for it at full moon, if you can get into a little bit of a cycle with that, then you're in a natural rhythm. And the same thing goes for the rhythm of the sun. In fact, another magical thing to do is actually to watch a sunrise, because a sunrise has all of the potential of the day ahead. And in my work as an astrologer, I'll often use the sunrise chart to really get a feeling for potential, for what's going to happen, for how things are going to evolve. And that's another really good focusing exercise, to watch a sunrise. And again, it doesn't take very long to do, but it can actually open thought processes in ways that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get sitting at a desk or somewhere else.
I love it. And really quick, one thing about, you mentioned about the sun and the cycles. We had gone to the beach one day. We got there really early, and I noticed the birds eating the food, right? But then it was like they had watches on. At noon, exactly at noon, they went and they got under their little trees and they took their nap. Da, da, da. And then at 3:30, I'm telling you, it's like they had a watch on, because I was looking at my watch. At 3:30, they start stretching, they start coming out, the sun is going. And then my grandfather had skin cancer, and he always told us, don't be out in the middle of the day. You know, like we would go to the theme parks until noon, and then we could go back after 4. I'm like, oh my God, it's the birds. Like, it's the same schedule as the birds. They know it's too hot, so they're just hanging out in the shade during the day. By the way, I was under a little tent. I wasn't actually out in the sun because of this, you know, I'm under the mangroves and stuff. But I paid attention to them, and I realized, you know, they were like, okay, they're going back out for dinner now. It's 3:30. Like the sun is down, so they're not gonna like. And that's so cool. Like, and we observe them and we can learn from them, you know. And they don't have watches. How do they know? Like, how does my dog know, you know, when it's time to go outside? Like, he doesn't have a watch. But
I know it absolutely is amazing. And I had I was honored enough to be able to be in the same place as a total eclipse
oh, cool.
one year of the sun. I was actually camping outside for it, and it was the most incredible experience, because at the total eclipse, you see, of course, it's total darkness, and it was obviously in the daytime, and the birds, they sang their evening chorus as the eclipse started to happen, and then they sang their dawn chorus as
Wow.
the eclipse was over. And so it was the most amazing thing to witness, to hear, to see, to listen to, because they knew, and nature does know. Nature actually knows its rhythms. Nature knows it, you know, and we've forgotten a lot, and we have to remember it, because we've forgotten a lot. Our ancestors knew it, and yet, yeah, it's all there. And it's a key, and I think it by witnessing it, by watching it, by listening to it, in the same way as with yourself, hearing those birds singing and thinking to yourself, well, they didn't have a watch, they just knew what to do, they were just getting on with life. I think there's such a lesson there for all of us, isn't there, that actually, you know, it is about moving forwards. It is about getting into the rhythm, into harmony, doing what we need to do when we need to do it, but making certain that we're shifting ourselves forwards too.
I love it. I love it. This is wonderful, Allison. So thank you so much. Like, I could talk to you for hours, for coming and joining me on this. And I'll make sure that all your links are in the show notes. Otherwise, this has been so much fun. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so excited to see you in your group on Facebook.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole, for having me today. It's been lovely chatting to you. It really has. Really
I
a
love
real
your hair,
joy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Allison. So we will catch you guys on the next episode. And